we're sitting here with Dan McCleary, the director of the Tennessee Shakespeare Company, having collaborated on this Midsummer Night's Dream project with Iris. And first of all, it is such a blast.
It is.
It's so much fun.
It's a lot of fun.
What really made me so happy, the first rehearsal, you said a lot of your productions, you use live musicians on stage.
All of them.
Elizabethan style?
All of them, yes. You know, on the Rose Playhouse stage, or on Bankside or Theatre, the Curtain, all of the original octagonal amphitheaters in London and south of London on Bankside, they had multiple levels in 360 degrees around a postage stamp of a stage for the actors. But then the musicians were always up left, just behind the actors. So they were always, and they're always either in support or they led from, for instance, the bear baiting event or the professional wrestling event into, you know, the Shakespeare at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But you know, Shakespeare is so, in Midsummer Night's Dream was a terrific example of how musical his ear was, because we already know he was writing in a very rare way, which was the rhythm of the heart. Sometimes he breaks the heartbeat when he goes bum 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 bum, you know, when he reverses it. But Midsummer Night's Dream is its own harmonic, you know, in the harmony of the spheres and the harmony of what goes on in our conscious selves and our unconscious selves, and what we're doing on stage is a sort of a physical manifestation of what happens in the play to me. There's this marriage of two great art forms, Shakespeare's language and music, which is the universal language.
And you can even go further, because what you're saying is his text has music and we have narrative in the music that we're playing. So on top of that, there's another and you know, like Lysander's speech in the section that you excerpted, that kind of wordplay and rhyming scheme and everything, that gives its own pulse. So I totally, I mean, I think it's amazing because it makes, you can feel and touch the action and the text itself. People think, you know, Shakespeare, I mean, they think this about Mozart and Beethoven too, that it should be revered and kept at arm's length and
under glass. Yes.
That's right. There's that old saying, I don't know who said it, but I use it often, that great art is like baby shoes. If you bronze them, they're no longer pretty functional.
That's right.
So if you put them on a pedestal and you take them away from their actual real intent, what was behind the artist's intent, they lose something. And to be able to touch this and embrace this like this is really fantastic. I also have to say, when I first talked to you about this project, and I mean, I had an idea, but I didn't nearly imagine how creative you were going to be about it. I think it's absolutely fantastic because in this excerpt, you actually have complete coherence. It stands totally on its own as a comprehensible little
vignette. It's a theme. I appreciate that. It's of the four worlds in the play. There's the court, there's the quartet of lovers, there's the mechanicals, the clowns, which you're acting in.
Well,
and
trying to act.
Very well, very funny. And then there's the fairy kingdom lorded over by Oberon, Titania, and Puck, and so we're sort of focusing on the dream world. It's also fun, that bit, and there's a lot of text in it. But I'm interested in your opinion of this, Michael. That, you know, as long as I've been living, normally what I will hear from people who go to see, for instance, musical theater, is that they attest to its brilliance or its skill when they feel like they can whistle a part of the tune as they come out. And since I was a child, I've always felt so much differently if I've heard Bach or Beethoven. I couldn't have begun to whistle a portion, but what stays with me is what it awoke in me, sitting in the audience. So it has a poetic sense to it. The same way with Shakespeare, he awakens audiences, he vibrates the audiences and the actors very, very differently. So I can't begin to tell you that I've ever gone to see a Shakespeare play, and I've been dealing with Shakespeare for 20 years, where I've understood every word. Same with any piece of classical music, but there's always something. I'm always interested in one thing on behalf of myself, on behalf of an actor or the audience, that awakens them poetically. Do you have a feeling about that?
Absolutely, and I'll say that is why, for all of the doomsday predictors and the naysayers who say that great art is disappearing, we can't afford this kind of not entertainment, but the whole model for symphony orchestras, for theater companies, for museums is disappearing because you know, why do we need to do this? In fact, it is essential because the greatest thing that can happen if somebody hears a Shakespeare play for the first time is not to get everything, have the appetite whetted, and know that the next time they're going to get more. So if you find somebody who's been studying Shakespeare for 20 years, who has gone through every illumination, who has gone through every analysis, and still finds something more, just imagine with the person upon whose psyche and soul all of that language is working,
Yes.
what that can charge. And certainly if you're talking about a young person, it can be a lifelong, and it's the same with music. Great art is great art because it hits you on every level. The more you know, the more you will get in one direction. But in terms of the visceral effect it has at the beginning, it's the same whether you are hearing it for the first time or the 100th time.
Absolutely.
And if it's great art, and happily, Shakespeare qualifies in the same category, certainly as Beethoven and Mozart. But we should sort of mention in passing, Michael Gandolfi's music is a really wonderful reflection of this drama.
It is, and it's a different, it's hard, yeah, I don't, not to get into your area, but it's sort of hard to draw a comparison between this music, which is so, to me, personal and evocative because I was around at its creation, and a Beethoven or a Bach or something, which is meant strictly for listening. Michael Gandolfi wrote this piece as occasional underscoring, occasional storytelling to evoke, sometimes for scene shifts. So it's creative. Its generative, creative moment comes from theater making,
Right.
and so it's ideal to have. You have to share it with the other humanity on stage, to have the actors on stage with it, and including your musicians who are so game. We were a little trepidatious because we didn't want to bring any of us too far out of our safety zone. Yeah, but we blew that out of the water right away.
But this, I was going to say, this is what's so great about Iris, because you don't have to worry about, I mean, I think there are some places where if you ask people to scream and shout and point, you get into union issues about asking them to do something that their contract doesn't call for, or just having people who are not used to just living on the edge a little bit. Whereas you give us,
they want the edge.
you give us half an inch and we'll take the whole arm. And so as we went through the rehearsals, which started as sort of polite little yelps, have turned into full-throttled screams.
Yes.
And we'll see what happens in the performance, but I think it's pretty exciting.
Well, you take the pie in the face like a true clown.
I've tried.
You take the failure and then you hop right back up.
But it's
Beautiful.
funny because, especially as a conductor, what you're trying to do is evoke a response in players in a way which is sort of nonverbal and have them commit to the sound. I mean, that's by definition what we do. So what you do as a director, you have to find some way to inspire an image or a feeling or a context so that the natural talent and inclination and instinct in your actor is going to then come out. It's not that you're acting for them. I mean, the worst kind of conducting is thinking that you can play for your players and not to trust them. You have to trust your actors, you have to trust your players. But then you lay back and sort of the art happens. So I get that. But now I have to pull myself out and deliver these lines, and it scares me. It's
really
much
hard.
more difficult than just, even playing,
It's all you're engaging all sides of your brain. I've done it. You direct a play that you also act in. It's a
Have you
recipe.
done that?
Yes, it's a recipe for disaster. It's tragic. It's tragedy, and you're holding it. You're holding the line beautifully, beautifully.
I don't know. It's fun. Well, I just think that this is a wonderful. I mean, it's wonderful certainly for Iris. I think it's great for the community. I think it's wonderful that we can do this at GPAC. And the other thing is the way you have adapted the physical space. We don't have any sets. We have some very nice backdrops, some good lighting. Basically, it's the physicality of the actors, the spatial,
The staging,
relations,
yes.
and not just their costumes, but the way they inhabit their costumes. That's what's making the show, and that's real creativity, because you didn't have, $300,000 worth of sets and
We're accustomed to that, though, aren't we?
well, yes, you make do with what you have, but I think it's tremendous, and I can't wait for the next collaboration.
Me too. Thank you, Michael. It's a
Thank you.
real pleasure and honor.
Thank you.